What if I told you Africa's oldest peaceful empire was in Nigeria, before Egypt was famous, before Rome was built, before the Bible was written in its final form? A kingdom existed in what is now southeastern Nigeria that had already developed one of the most sophisticated governance systems on earth. They had no army, no war machine, no conquered territory soaked in blood, and yet, they ruled. This is the story of the Nri Kingdom, and the world has been sleeping on it for too long. The year is approximately 900 AD in the heart of what we now call Anambra State, Nigeria. A civilization is quietly becoming something extraordinary. The Igbo people of the Nri region have been building, not walls, not weapons, but something far more powerful, a spiritual empire. The Nri Kingdom's founding mythology tells of Eri, a divine being sent by Chukwu, the supreme god, who descended from the sky to the earth. He landed at the confluence of two rivers and became the ancestor of the Nri people. From this divine origin, the Nri would claim a sacred authority, and like anything else in the ancient world, the Nri was not a warrior king. He was a priest king, a man whose power came entirely from spiritual authority. He could cleanse communities of sin. He could lift taboos that were destroying a village. He could end ritual curses, and for this, kingdoms paid him tribute across hundreds of miles. Think about how remarkable this is. No army, no threat of violence, just the power of belief and the social technology of ritual. The Nri Kingdom expanded its influence across the entire Igbo world through priests, diplomats, and the sacred legitimacy that only Nri could grant to local rulers. Let's talk about how the Nri actually ran things in Europe at the same time. You had feudalism, kings at the top, peasants at the bottom, enforced by sword. The Nri system was almost the opposite. Power was decentralized, negotiated, and held accountable by community consensus. It was closer to a networked democracy than a monarchy. Communities that had experienced a death from lightning, considered a sign of divine punishment, would send emissaries to Nri carrying gifts. The Nri would travel or send priests to perform the Nsoni, the cleansing of the land. Without this ritual, the community believed they could not farm, marry, or trade normally. The Nri held the reset button for society. And here is where history gets physical. In 1938, a farmer named Isaiah Nozi in Igbo was digging a water cistern in his compound and struck bronze. The objects he found were so sophisticated, so beautiful, that archaeologists initially refused to believe they were African-made. This was material evidence of a civilization operating at the very highest levels of ancient craftsmanship. 1,100 years ago, radiocarbon dating placed these objects at around 900 AD. The bronze alloy showed deliberate metallurgical sophistication, and among the 165,000 objects found, glass beads, traced to Egypt and Venice. The Nri people, in their remote Nigerian forest, were trading with the Mediterranean world over 1,000 years ago. But perhaps the most extraordinary thing about Nri was this: they actively opposed human sacrifice in the worst forms of slavery within their sphere of influence. Centuries before any European abolitionist movement, they used their spiritual authority to say, this practice ends here. And it did. The 19th century brought something the Nri had never encountered before, a power that did not speak the language of ritual. The British colonial expansion did not negotiate through priests. It came with rifles. And for a kingdom built entirely on spiritual authority, this was an existential threat. When the British colonial administration arrived, they needed to understand what they were dealing with. They found the Nri Kingdom confusing. There was no army to defeat, no walls to breach. How do you conquer a system held together by belief? Their solution was simple and devastating. They ignored it. They called the Igbo stateless, a people without government, and then they invented a government for them. The history books, written by the colonizers, said the Igbo people had no political institutions. Before British arrival, they said this about a people who had been running a sophisticated spiritual political network for over 1,000 years. This was not ignorance. This was a deliberate erasure, because admitting that Africans had advanced self-governance would undermine the entire justification for colonialism. The Nri still exists today. The title, the institution, the sacred responsibility, it has continued. The current Nri carries on a lineage that may be the oldest continuously held sacred office in Sub-Saharan African history, 1,000 years of unbroken tradition, and most of the world has never heard his name. The Nri Kingdom teaches us something that the modern world desperately needs to hear, that power does not have to come from violence, that civilization does not require conquest. That a society can hold itself together through shared belief, moral authority, and community accountability. The Nri figured this out 1,000 years ago. We are still trying to figure it out today. Here is a fact that should make you stop and think. The British Empire, the largest empire in human history, lasted approximately 300 years before collapsing. The Nri Kingdom lasted over 1,000. The civilization that history books called stateless outlasted the empire that called it primitive. Let that land. If you made it to the end of this video, you now know something that millions of people don't. Share it, because lost history doesn't stay lost unless we let it. There are 99 more stories where this came from. I'll see you in the next one.